Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Economic Preppers. It's been a few weeks since we talked, but we're catching up here, and we have Dylan and Patrick. Guys, how you doing this week?
Doing great.
Oh,
Happy to
man,
be
I'm
here.
excited. It's a great week.
Yeah,
Happy New
it's
Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, everybody. It's it's the holidays just took a lot of everybody, but we're here to catch up and see how everybody's doing, and start with the big stories. Starting with, I guess, well, there's lots of them, but we can start with the number one right now, and that's the Speaker of the House and the new guy that's allegedly in charge, and all the people that kind of held out to make that happen, and all the different votes and all the reactions to it. So, Dylan, what was your take on what was going on with the Speaker of the House the last couple of weeks, and what's your view on that whole story?
Yeah. So I'm gonna give it's an interesting perspective. I tried to avoid politics this whole holiday season. I tried to like keep that out of my mind, out of what I was focusing on. But so I think if it's gonna be a big story, so I'm looking to learn more about that here. But because I think if it's gonna be a big story, right? Or people are gonna be emotionally tied to it, there's a reason behind it beyond just the story itself. There's a reason why that type of stuff gets heated during certain times. But for me, I really wanted to focus on just building, working on myself, spending time with friends and family, and focusing on the important things and not getting distracted by all the noise. So I'd love to hear you guys talk more about the nuances of that story as well.
Well, I guess Patrick, what's your take on it?
Man, okay, so here's how I feel about it all, right? I think it's just all a big distraction. So I'm the guy who doesn't really read into stuff as much as the rest of you guys do, probably. And I guess I'm like totally aware that Q of his existence and what Q is doing. But do I dig into it and look for like the nitty gritty details like everyone was waiting for? Like, no, that wasn't me. But what I could see was like, it was clearly like a total psychological bomb. Like that's all it was. I don't even understand like why it took so long to get to the inevitable result that they already had planned for. So to me, it was just I know one thing when I see it. One thing I knew is it was a distraction. The question was from what?
Yeah, and it was also like it's part of the new but the old process. The process used to be this way. There used to be contention on the floor, and there were different factions. This is before when we have the established two-party system where it's almost a uniparty. But now we have this faction of the red party that says that, hey, we will vote for you eventually, but you need to meet us on the things that we want. So they got a lot of concessions out of McCarthy, like one person can put him up for a revote, or you could they got certain committees, they have certain people that are going to be there, they have a footage of January 6th that's going to come out, all this different stuff that they got that he promised. He did a lot of campaign promising to get the ballot to pass to be that certain number. But yeah, it wasn't straightforward. But this, and everybody's saying it's like this is kind of disruptive and it could lead to other disruptions. Well, maybe that's a good thing. The government, as it was in the run of the mill process, it didn't lead to a good outcome. So maybe they need to change and shake it up.
I mean, I was just thinking in my head, like one of the best parts that I saw of the whole debacle on Twitter was when they were like almost getting in fistfights. He like turned around and they were like puffing up chests and like holding each other back, and it was like order, order, and it was kind of hilarious in a way, but also thinking like these are the grown men leading our country. It was kind of ridiculous to watch, actually. Like I would expect better of my representatives if they were out there like fist fighting on the floor. What are they going to do? Like seriously, guys, how's that? That's going to change policy.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
what
there's
beats
been
you into like our
We've seen
way?
that before, though, right? I mean, historically speaking, we've seen shoes thrown at leaders. We've seen people in other countries like fight out and argue. I mean, the British Parliament, the House of Lords, or the House of Commons, I'm not sure which one it is, but they yell at each other all the time. I mean, like, I think that it's good that they have a passion for the things that they're talking about, and it's a frustration level too. That's kind of boiling over. So I'd rather see people that were passionate and had to be reeled back in than just everybody just very boring C-SPAN kind of events all day long, just dictating our policies.
But dude, it was like kind of like a drama show. I mean, they were like literally holding each other back. It's like, listen, let the guy go punch the guy or leave him alone. Let's just end this right now. But what's probably not going to happen, they're probably going to walk up to each other, talk loudly, and then nothing would happen. But they got this like show of like, oh my gosh, we panned off camera. I wish we would have seen that. What would have happened? And it was just a little bit ridiculous to watch these grown men not be able to figure out how to vote between two people. Like you get
Well, I
two
think
people vote.
it sounds like what you're saying is like what we're witnessing or what we're questioning is it reality? Like Jeff was saying, hey, if your representatives are so fiercely passionate about something that, it might come to blows. I mean, if you watch a football game, right, those are grown men that are passionate about their sport. They are competing. They want to win. They want to do what it takes. And like sometimes they get a little emotional and they lose it. They get they have hot heads. And that's part of that game. And historically, there's been lots of incidents where people get in skirmishes in any sort of in the House or in the Senate and things like that when they're going back and forth on issues. But I think the big thing that you're kind of pointing out is like, are we seeing that? Are we seeing that level of passion and seriousness, or is it just theater? And is it theater designed not to help us, but to manipulate us?
Man, that's the one thing I felt like the most certain about. It's theater. Like that's just how I feel about it.
If I'm Dana White, I'm buying C-SPAN now. And I'm going to go put tables, ladders, and chairs and go old school WWE and just have them do a big cage brawl. I think everybody would watch that. That's
Thunderdome.
I mean, again, like there was two ways I would say you solve it first by like just let them go at it and see what happens, because these are grown men that need to figure out how to handle a solution in a responsible manner. And if they choose not to, then just handle it irresponsibly, but just hurry up and do it already, right? The other thing I would say is when you start actually taking a look at what they did, right? They didn't get anywhere. They were counterproductive. Like it just looked really silly, right? So
it's below the surface, though. We have different people on the committees, which, like, if you understand the process, that all starts with committee. If things can't get out of committee, it doesn't get to the House. If it doesn't get out of the House, it doesn't get to the Senate, and then it doesn't get to the resident's desk. It's got to get through the process. So now with the House getting controlled by the Republicans, who have been waiting for this day for seems forever, because they've seen all the idiocy and the idiocracy that's been going on for the last 2 years, they're like, it's time enough. And that's why they were holding out. And while it doesn't seem like they got much on this vote, they got a lot of concessions on who gets to be on these committees, who is kicked off of these committees, who gets access to certain things. There's a lot of change that's going to be. It's kind of like when Trump changed all the judges and was so in charge of getting all the judges right. That has ramifications for a long time coming, but you won't see it overnight. So this is like it's more of the Chinese outlook of like the 100-year perspective versus the 5-year perspective. They're playing the long game.
The other thing that'd be really interesting too, Caitlin mentioned to me, my wife, she said, the way I would handle it is I would walk in there, hand everyone a piece of paper, give it a red circle and a blue circle, and you just have to pick one of them. All you got to do is put a check mark in one of them, and no one would know, right? Because the whole idea is everyone's watching who is going to sway who and who's going to be like the last guy standing. So maybe there would have been like 10% more blue that voted for McCarthy. We would have no clue, because the idea is everyone's watching everything so closely as to how they're going to react and how people are going to interpret what you voted. Just make it a blind vote, put them all on camera. They each circle one or check mark one off, put it in there. They read them. Guess what? Someone would win. It would be it. It's done.
Congressional secret ballots. Could be. I could go for that.
Like I said, my wife had a great idea. I was like, well, that would be at least more fun to watch, like real reality TV show, right? That would be amazing.
All right. We beat that one to a pulp. So speaking of other pulps, so we talked about the resident now and everything about the classified documents and how like they keep finding them. It's either found them in an old office, they found them in next door Corvette in a garage. They'll probably find them in a crawl space or an attic, or it was his mother-in-law's. I don't know where they're going to find them next. But Patrick, what are you thinking about all these classified documents that Mr. Biden keeps leading all over the place?
Guys, like, to me, it's pretty simple. I don't really care about that kind of stuff because I expect everyone to have confidential documents from companies, a little bit of cover your ass documentation. So to me, it doesn't bother me that Biden's got documents at home. It didn't bother me that Trump was found to have some documents. The question is not do they have the documents, is what their intentions with those documents were. And how secure were those documents, and did they do something that was illegal with their confidential knowledge?
It's no question to me from that the illegality is as soon as they leave the right room, and worked in that sector before. I know what's allowed and what's not, and they tell you, like they drill it into you if you have to deal with classified stuff, like it can't leave like a certain room, certain area, whatever, and it's okay or not okay, because as soon as you do that, the chain of custody and who you show it to is all gone. So that's really what's at stake here. With the stuff that happened in Mar-a-Lago with Trump, is he already declassified it, so it wasn't classified anymore, but only the president can do that. So now vice president has stuff and he can't declassify it, and he's just leaving around in unsecure areas. Don't tell me a locked garage is a secure area. And now it's coming out like they also have to keep logs of who visits their property. So and Biden has not been very forthcoming in that list. So who's seeing these documents? And apparently we've seen pictures of the documents and the dates on them from Mar-a-Lago, and they relate to the money that went to Iran from when Obama and Biden were there. So there's a tie-in between two. It's quite likely that these documents are interrelated. That's really what's going to be coming to the surface now. But it's a full-blown investigation when you have classified documents. It's a much bigger deal because you don't know what foreign companies or foreign countries are seeing these documents.
I mean, but would you really be surprised to learn that there were multiple foreign companies involved or multiple diplomats involved? Like, this is the kind of stuff we expect. The questions that I have are like, what are they doing to us, the everyday human, that we can prepare for? Like, now that we understand these games are being played, I think the real answer here is it's a distraction, right? It's all a distraction from what is happening right now in our economy, right? You've gone out and seen eggs. It's hard to find. We've known this is going to happen. We called this months ago with all the whole bird flu issue, and they decided to kill a bunch of chickens. We knew this was going to happen. So here we are sitting here later. And again, I'm reminded of that quote. What's the difference between a conspiracy theorist and you? It's about 6 months, right? So like, that's really the difference.
Yeah. I think you bring up a good point is, when you say, is it a distraction? Because like these are things that we expect to happen, and they very well could be using all a distraction. Leaking, having not conspiracy theories, but confidential documents, leaking those, having those in the wrong places. That could all be strategic. You read about stuff during the world wars or just war in general, where there's intelligence gathering. Once you learn that someone is gathering intelligence on you, you got to decide what your strategy is. And so if you're constantly being monitored and watched and looked at, sometimes you got to like let information slip or do something that is unexpected or that draws the attention of whoever you want to draw their attention in, while you're going around behind back doing something else. And so they're very sophisticated at these games. I mean, they got strategic advisors that are doing. They are going to have an intelligence play. And it could be a play on the American people, right? And by getting us distracted by this kind of stuff, that we could miss out on what's really going on or what's really happening.
Yeah, I think.
No, I agree. I'm just saying, for me, it's very simple. The way it looks to me is, if it's on the news, it's one thing I'm not paying attention to when I'm doing my research. It's pretty simple for me. It's one thing I check off my list is not to distract myself with.
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a lot of these terms that are coming out, like fifth generation or fifth grading or warfare, or it's an info war, and and a lot of this is distraction, and like pay attention to this while this really happens over here. But it doesn't happen overnight. There's lots of things that are going on. Speaking of which, it's time to jump to the next topic. If I can find the list again, there we go. So we talked about the documents. We're going to start talking about economics again, and we had the CPI come out today, which was ironically kind of a nothing burger. It just like it hit the numbers. It was I think negative 0.1 month over month, and I think it was 6.1. Was that right, Patrick?
I didn't actually see the CPI numbers today. I didn't get to read the data yet.
Yeah, it was the expected number, so it didn't change.
It was a big nothing burger in terms of what it did to crypto. You see Bitcoin just coming right back down. So for me, none of this stuff really matters, because when you look at it, even I would give a shout out to Joe Brown, right, with Heresy Financial. If you guys don't watch him, go look at him. But he'll talk about it right now that he's expecting the increase of inflation to turn, and we're expecting now a deflationary aspect to all the supplies. So these are the kind of things that you start watching out for in the economic cycles that The CPI's number today really doesn't matter to me as much as what I've been watching in the stores for the past 6 months. The CPI numbers to me are an old metric of what I already saw happen. So what I'm looking at is what's happening now and what do I see coming. So the CPI number doesn't really bother me too much.
Yeah, the CPI was 6.5 to be accurate there. But it's, again, people have gotten conditioned that, these 6, 7, 8% numbers are now the norm. So it doesn't bother them as much. Whereas a couple of years ago, it was between 1.5% and 3%. So it's definitely the impact you're talking about that you're seeing at the stores, the gas station, everywhere. Everything is basically doubled in price or darn close to it.
And
So,
American consumer credit card debt is at an all-time high. So the reality is, if it goes up a little bit less than it did last month, that's not really good news to hear. It's already up so much that they can barely afford it, that all of their expenses are going on credit cards, and they could barely afford to pay them off. Right
and
now, we're waiting for a massive credit card disaster in the United States. It doesn't matter if eggs went from $1 to $1.01 this month, because it went from 20 cents to $1 like last year. So we don't care that it slowed down a little. We can't afford it now.
Well, and it compounds. That's the thing people don't realize or think about. Like if you're working for an hourly wage, and CPI was 10%, or inflation was 10%, just generally, 1 year, and then it was 10% again. It's basically 20% in which your wage needs to go up. So you're making $20 an hour. You now need to be making 24, $25 an hour just to be break even. And if you ate a lot of eggs, now that we're seeing the shortages, my favorite wing store was closed when I tried to go there on my birthday. So that was disappointing.
I'm
but
really sorry about that. That's sad.
but and I eat a lot of eggs, and the prices had doubled or tripled for eggs for your diet for what you do. And so not only is everything else expensive, but now specifically to you're now experiencing hyperinflation in certain things that have supported your lifestyle. And that can cause a lot of stress for a lot of people out there.
yeah, and I think you brought up a great point when you talked about the wages, and that we're going to, everybody's talking about CPI today, but the real numbers that they're distracting you from, I think, are the labor numbers. And like as we clicked over to 2023, a lot of minimum wages across a lot of states went up, which is just another way to try to kick the can down the road and print more money and just get it into the hands of those people. But it's not going to be a soft landing. But the wages are not keeping up with inflation, whether it's 5%, 6%, 8%, or double digit, like Shadow Stats really says. Wage increases are not going up, and the unemployment numbers that they're already looking at auditing the unemployment numbers that were announced, I think, like Q1 of last year.
They were off by like a million numbers.
Yes,
or
it was. So
jobs.
They're using bad data. They're using bad data to make judgments on jobs. And now, if they think the economy is getting healthier because the jobs look better, well, it's not true because the numbers are off.
Yeah.
So, who knows where this all plays out? But it continues to move week by week. But let's turn to something we can know a little bit more and a little bit more control about, which is crypto. So, Patrick, I know you threw a story in here about Morocco. Let me get that up on the screen so we can talk about it.
Yeah, please, let's do. So Morocco is now, again, we talk about crypto adoption worldwide. So people who still believe that owning crypto is not a good store of wealth, I actually, want to throw out this article to say, look again, here's another country finalizing framework for their central banks to be able to keep going with central blockchain digital currency. So when you look at central bank digital currencies over there, they're creating blockchains, they're creating their own infrastructures, and right now they're passing regulatory legislation to allow them to have an infrastructure to operate within. So again, looking at crypto becoming mainstream, the hints are all around us, the signs are all around us. And Morocco, of all places, it's not like a no-place country. Morocco is a huge hub of central finance over there, too. There's a lot of business that happens in Morocco, especially for the Middle East. The majority of the Middle East, Morocco is a safe place where they go and can conduct business internationally in those areas.
Yeah, I think it's a big story. Morocco's gonna. I'll probably have to touch on that in another episode because I know there's a lot of things that all come back to Morocco. I've done a lot of stories on BRICS and other nations, but Morocco does bubble up to the top for several reasons over and over again. So we'll have to talk about that. But yeah, the big stories really happen for crypto outside of the United States and outside of the G7 or a lot of the Western Europe, because they're solidified with people that have access to bank accounts, that have access to that get their finances in order, and they're part of that dollar SWIFT system. But there's more and more countries and people that are disenfranchised from that system and are turning towards the crypto world.
That's correct.
Yeah,
And
it's
even
part. I think in part.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, I was going to say that it's in part due to like when you're further away to the center of the monopoly, basically. So if you're further away from the printing press, you're going to start looking. You're going to be more impacted for the volatility that's created from massive money printing or massive exploitation, and so you're going to look for solutions a lot quicker. So that's what we're seeing in like countries the G7. And probably another reason they're seeing in countries outside the G7, them talking about this, setting up infrastructure, setting policy for stuff dealing with crypto, is it might take them a little bit longer to position themselves, but so that if a big player moves, they are ready to go. Because I don't think they're any of them think they're going to usurp any one of the big nations. They're just waiting for the big nation to give them a nod, and they're like, "Hey, we're ready. We're ready for this. Hey, give us your favors."
Yeah, they're building. This is the time to build. This is the time when they keep building. And even if you look at the next article we'll talk about, it's actually really cool when you start thinking about crypto news. BlackRock. So that takes us to our second story about BlackRock, right? So right now I want to talk about the $15 trillion they're infusing into Core Scientific. Now, Core Scientific was like literally right on the verge of bankruptcy, one of the largest miners in the United States, and they were going to just shut down. So at this point, BlackRock comes in and says, hey, we're going to help bail you out. Here's $17 million. And then they're also saying, here's another $15 trillion that we're going to start allocating from our funds. You want to start over because of that?
No. I'm shaking my head at the number. I mean, 15 trillion, isn't that like 7-8 times the market cap of all crypto right now?
15 trillion. The crypto market cap right now is 1 trillion, barely hovering around 1 trillion. So, we're talking about $15 trillion coming in, right? That's a huge amount of money coming into the crypto markets. And I'm guessing a lot of it's going to be going into their fund in Bitcoin.
Have to be. I mean, you're looking at probably at least half of that going into Bitcoin. I think that's the big boy. That's what everybody wants. If you want to get exposure to crypto, you're going to be in the leading indicator of crypto. So that would make the most sense to me.
Well, also the liquidity, the liquidity deal. A lot of the other coins out there, like they wouldn't even stand a chance when it comes to liquidity. Like, so BlackRock wouldn't even risk putting any significant amount of money in some sort of speculative, illiquid altcoin. It would just break everything, and it would not look good. It would not be good. So they're going to be a little more careful with that. So I think Bitcoin's probably the only one that can handle amounts of money like that.
Happens, right? You're going to see that the market cap of Bitcoin is going to increase so much that now institutional investors will start to be able to come into play here. It'll now allow them to start playing with the big boys. So when you start seeing that kind of money hit in $15 trillion, this is exactly the type of move we were waiting for, is this kind of institutional money to come in. And Fidelity entered earlier this year. So you have, or I guess last year now, but you have a lot of plays happening in the Bitcoin space. All we're seeing now in the hash rate and number of wallets accumulating Bitcoin at the 1, 10, over 100 level, they're all growing.
Yeah. I think that the numbers you're talking about, like, not a lot of coins can absorb that kind of volume and that kind of the price will just jump so much, even for like things that are just inside the top 25. It's going to be huge spikes, that kind of money coming in.
Absolutely. You're going to see pumps on Matic. You're going to see, Cardano jumping. You're going to see all these top 10 for sure just move up with the market cap of Bitcoin. Because again, Bitcoin right now, in terms of the share of the cryptocurrency space, it's the largest owner of the population of like where all the money is in the crypto space. But again, as a portion of the entire crypto space, you'll see it relatively grow. Some of the bad actors or the companies that don't matter, some of the projects that are defunct, will only mean that there's more money going into the top tier projects.
Yeah. But I do think there's still a lot of that regulatory arbitrage opportunity in this market. And then the fact that a lot of that, the altcoins, even the top ones, are cross collateralized with something like Bitcoin. Like you see Bitcoin go up, they all go up, not necessarily because that money went into them, but because they now have more liquidity for them. And so some of that will happen. I still think that's a game that is being played and will be played. So it's not necessarily the most ethical game that is being played. So I think that's something to watch out for, and something to keep an eye out for regulatory clarity in the space to really see the floodgates open. Because obviously 15 trillion, what is that? That would move Bitcoin up higher than gold for total market cap if that flowed in. But obviously all that 15 trillion isn't going to go into Bitcoin. A percentage is, but those small incremental percentages are what slowly moves the needle forward and slowly builds that adoption and makes it more and more integral to the existence of these larger entities and institutions.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of indicators out there as the other projects that might be absorbing some of the other volume, but there's like generally 4 cycles. There's Bitcoin, then there's Ethereum, and then there's the major altcoins, and there's all the rest. So first would come the Bitcoin, but then you look at like after Ethereum, who else would seem to benefit?
You can't look at Tether, right? Tether's supposed to stay at 1.
No, not Tether. But I think you look at like some of the funds that Grayscale has and some of the other funds that are out there in the projects that you have these partnerships that are investments. And you're looking at basically a good significant part of the top 100, but maybe even just the top 50 that would see a lot of growth right away. They'd have to be the ones to absorb it. But again, there's a lot of rules in investing. Like you can't own more than a certain percentage of the entire project. So then you just become too dominant of a force. So you got to do that market cap calculation too. So
yeah.
So it all goes back to Bitcoin.
But what you end up seeing is Bitcoin dominance goes up. So Bitcoin dominance usually ends up going up once it starts weeding out some of these older dead projects. So what you end up seeing is during the bull run, you'll still see the Bitcoin dominance increase. I still believe that. That's my guess.
Yeah, it's going to be a while till altcoin season again. Yeah. But I think that, speaking of Bitcoin, like here's some of your favorite charts of the hash rate. You've seen a few indicators kind of popping off lately for Bitcoin. What have you seen, Patrick?
So I want to pay attention, everyone, to this nice little yellow line in the middle. This yellow line in the middle took a ridiculous drop in hash rate during this last cold spell. But one of the things I've been waiting for a long time to happen is the release of a new miner. And they did release their new Antminer S19J Pro is what they're calling it. So about almost 10% more power efficient. This is what I expect miners to be shutting down and replacing with. So in terms of hash rate, we did see a couple of really cool things. One is they were able to power cycle down so that the power companies were able to have enough demand or enough supply to meet the demand for the people who had these really cold homes. So that was one beautiful thing we saw happen. And that's one of the reasons why you saw significant drops at those hash rate levels, is because they had mandatory power downs, which is something that you agree to with the utility company. Usually as a miner, you have mandatory hours that you're going to shut down every year that they're allowing you to do. So this is nothing out of the ordinary. But what is out of the ordinary, again, is this increase right away back up to a higher hash rate. So I'm wondering, again, like when are we going to see the stop and slow down of the hash rate? I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Now that they're releasing new miners on the schedule here, I think starting January, you're going to see the miners being shipped. Come March, people will start deploying them, maybe April. And by then, the hash rate is going to take off. This is exactly what we are looking for the heartbeat of Bitcoin to do. This is exactly what we expected. So this little drop here is not so crazy to me because I understand what happened when you shut down a lot of miners in these areas. But one of the funny things is China's no longer really mining a lot. The people that are really mining, U.S. has the highest population of miners right now.
Interesting, considering the cost of electricity in the United States.
Yeah, it is interesting, but there are a lot of co-ops out there, and if you know where to look, you can be pretty profitable. Some of these places do have good power rates. The problem is they don't understand how to get through the cycle enough and sell Bitcoin at the right time. So usually these hodlers, they sell at the wrong time, and that's what kills the mining industry, is when you're not prepared to weather these bear markets.
Yeah.
So what is
anything
the
else on
implication?
Bitcoin you wanted to touch?
Oh, I just wanted to ask Patrick, just what is the implication if we have a skyrocketing hash rate due to the new miners coming onto the market in the next 3 months in terms of Bitcoin price action and phase of the market that we're in?
So what happens is when the hash rate starts going up, it actually makes the older miners less profitable because what happens is the hash rate increases, the difficulty to solve the block also increases. So when the block difficulty increases and you're still running a miner with less hash rate, that means you're going to have less rewards. And that's actually how it happens within the algorithms because most people, they mine to a pool. So your percentage of the pool's strength actually goes down if you're not continuing to upgrade your miners. So at the end of the day, it shuts down old miners. So that ends up some volatility for sure. But then what you end up seeing again is because everyone is spending so much time, it reduces their ability to be profitable because they have to spend all this capital to get new miners. So right now in the secondary markets, we start to see a lot of Bitcoin miners out there transacting, moving from one distributor to another third-party distributor to another guy. Used miners are floating everywhere. Miners are shipping them to different hosting facilities. And a lot of them, unfortunately, are shutting down because they realize they can't afford the newest 19J Pros.
Mm-hmm. So
continuing the conversation on crypto, I know Dylan, you wanted to put out there in the notes, and it's a little cryptic to us, but you said it like this time would be different. What did you mean by that statement in our show notes?
So I think this is an important thing to look out for, especially in the space when you're navigating the space and listening to any sort of crypto influencer. It seems to me like there's a game that is played in crypto where it's hot new project with all marketing buzzwords, with savvy investors or savvy coders backing the project, enters the market. It's going to be a such and such killer. And you see all these influencers talking about it, hyping it up, and it does well for a little bit. And then as soon as you go into any sort of bear market or longer phase of the bull market, it drops off and is replaced by another project. And then the influencer starts promoting another project, right? And they just kind of repeat this cycle of new project on the scene. It's going to be the best thing ever. Put your money into it, buy the tokens, you'll be rich, you'll be able to retire. And then all of a sudden that thing peaks, it spikes up, and then never talk about it again. And I think the thing to think about, and this is something I've thought about a lot, is that game has worked very well for a lot of these people that have been in the space and have been in a position to promote. There's so many channels where one of the big things is they just shill all these new tokens and projects coming into the space. And one thing to look for is, why is it, if we mentioned before in the show, like projects like Ethereum and Cardano, projects that have been around for a bit, why is a new project going to come and overtake them? And you'd be very careful looking at like, who is actually behind that new project, and why aren't they building on an older project? Why are they renaming it? Why are they rebranding it? Why are they coming into the space now with this new project? And the thing that stands out to me, or a question you should ask, is like, well, who are the developers? You're not just going to get some completely greenhorn developer on the project. Now, these are probably going to be people that have been doing this for years. And who are the investors? Well, you're not going to get some brand new investor, right? Maybe there'll be some brand new investors that are pulled into crypto for the first time, but these are people that have invested in other projects, have done other similar things. And if you look at the track record for a lot of these things and a lot of these projects that have been launched, they're complete failures and they've been abandoned. And in a lot of cases, very unethically. So it's something to pay attention to as we are potentially starting to come out of this bear market into a new bull market, to not let the enthusiasm and excitement of the new things distract you from what's actually real and what's actually important. So that's what I wanted to.
I also want to note too, like, I don't really think that we are coming out of the bear market yet. I want to be like, I want to slow us down. I think this is a pump fake. If I was going to be my honest version of me based on what I see a pump fake. I see the hash rate continuing to stay just around where it's at till the new miners are shipped. And in that time frame, the Bitcoin price is going to tank. And that's where we see that mass exodus of miners. That hasn't happened yet. And I'm still waiting for it. So I don't think we're out of bear market yet.
I'm on the
that
same
kind of going.
I was gonna say I'm on the same page, but again, you see all these influencers, all these people on Twitter and wherever you watch them saying, "Hey, look, we're out of the bear market, right? Look at this pump. Check out these coins. Watch my video. Here are the project you should be focusing on." All trying to draw people in. So just be careful out there.
Yeah, they're definitely trying that. That's going to be continuing to be the mechanism that a lot of people do with the pump and dumps. But right now, it's probably falling on deaf ears because a lot of those people are just not around anymore to look for that, or the ones that are still around watching for the crypto information know better. So they're not getting as much traction. I think the last real major swing, and we had the DeFi go up and down, we had NFTs go up and then way down. I think that pump and dumps are probably going to be a little less common, but they're still going to be out there. You're right. You do need to be careful. I mean, Patrick, we should probably tell a story about the crypto, the Caleb and Brown call that we got the other day.
Oh man, that was pretty funny. Yeah, I had a great time with that. Those kind of calls, they warm my spirits.
So to set the context, Caleb and Brown was put out an alert that somebody was scamming people and they were getting their phone list. Well, both of us have contacted Caleb and Brown. We've had accounts there, and mine are as planned, virtually empty. And so this guy, I knew when this guy called me and I identified as Caleb and Brown, it's probably a scam because he said I think it was Theta. My Theta was at risk. So I had nothing.
I was like, Jeff, keep him on the line.
Yeah.
Tell him you'll call him back.
So yeah,
tell him to call back in 5 minutes.
We got him to call back.
5 minutes to get ready.
We got him to call back. We set up a recording. I shot a video of the whole call. I got everything, and he kept calling back. We did it was 2 parts. It's on Litecoin Leaders YouTube channel. I'll put the link down there. But it's really entertaining to watch. It shows that don't try this at home. Right? We always say not financial advice, that sort of thing. But certainly with a scammer that calls you, don't do what we did because we knew what we were getting into and we knew what not to share immediately. But I mean, it's really entertaining to just play them out. Caleb and Brown contacted us about the videos and they said they're pursuing it. But we had this guy pretty much, he was kind of quaking at the end because we knew he really wasn't catching on that we knew what we were talking about. And he didn't.
Yeah, he kept asking us for our name. It was really pretty funny. I enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah, but it's going to be a while for altcoin market to come back. But I think you're right. I know that there's a lot of indicators that are out there historically that you look at the same things for the miners, and that makes perfect sense because that blockchain and that 4-year cycle is rinse repeat, and Bitcoin leads the market. But it's not always the same climate. Like history often rhymes. It doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. It's because it's similar, but it's going to be a little bit different. We don't know what's going to happen in 2023, except we do know that CBDCs are going to probably be coming out, and they're just trying to roll them out about the time you're talking about, mid-year. So maybe that's going to be the time frame that they're going to try and extend this bear market to and keep Bitcoin's price down until then. But we're all speculating on time. Time is the hardest thing to predict. So lots of things to watch in the crypto market. We're also watching other markets too. We had the CPI, like we mentioned, come out. It didn't really. There was more of a Bitcoin moved over 18,000. Did it get to 19?
Yes, it did. It hit a little bit over 19 today.
So it hit over 19,000, but it was kind of like it was buy the rumor, sell the news. They knew that the CPI would be an overreaction, so it kind of pumped beforehand, and now it's starting to trickle out. But
now we're back down to 18.8. I mean, we're going to be just probably floating around there for a while. I'm not concerned about the price.
So I mean, people unfortunately are getting acclimated to adverse conditions. Like the inflation is becoming the norm, and the CPI comes out, and it's not good numbers historically speaking, but it's not good for the rest of the life. And real estate is still having issues. We talked to one of our people that's big into the real estate market in Florida today, and he said things are cooling off. They're cooling off everywhere, even though there's still people that want houses and there's still a supply crunch. The prices are just really hard to get into these houses, and it's really hard to get financed with the rates in the 7% and 8% range, which was the norm 20 years ago. And it's kind of historical norm range. It's just that we got accustomed to 2% and 3% real estate mortgages, which inflated these prices to where they're at now. So now they're not selling. So it's interesting to watch. I also saw today that gold went over 1,900, I think. So it's really spiked up. The precious metals went up a little bit, but they've been pretty stagnant.
25% in the past 6 months.
Right.
Silver is amazing.
Yeah. So
but that's because the dollar is strong, guys. That's what they want us to believe. The dollar is so strong that silver is going up in value. Come on. Wake up, guys. Seriously. Look at what's going on. The dollar is collapsing. It's been collapsing. and it is not going to get any better anytime soon. Your purchasing power of the dollar is deteriorating. Now, you can never again say you didn't know. Now it's on you. You guys have to make sure that you're making your own informed decisions. But the reality is, shit's looking pretty bad out here, guys. So, what out here are you smelling that smells like roses? I'm just not seeing it. Like, you show me, where are your roses out here? Because I just don't see it. In terms of the crypto space, I'm still waiting for more destruction before anything else happens. Just like Binance or maybe another project going down again. You know, you see stuff happening. Gemini is now under fire with the SEC. So it's just like really getting ridiculous now.
Yeah. Well, any
It's
sort of
interesting you
regulatory.
mentioned the dollar.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dylan. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like any sort of like major regulatory changes or things put into play in the crypto space could have huge ripple effects. Because that's just a play that hasn't been played yet. But we're seeing, like you showed the Morocco story, right? We're seeing that happen around the world, but that happens in a big G7 country. That can shake things up a lot.
Yeah, I think regulation. A lot of people are waiting for regulation because regulation will lead to the big money coming in, which will boost the prices. So I think they're holding off regulation to hold the price down, because as soon as regulation gets approved, especially in the U.S., the flood doors are open and the price would just shoot up. So I think they're waiting for that.
Yeah, right now there's fear of the unknown. They don't know how to assess the risk to Bitcoin. A lot of people are still struggling to understand how to securely store it themselves anyways. Right now, you just don't even see enough institutional knowledge to be able to deploy on a large scale. So at this point, I'm not concerned about that at all. What I am really concerned about here is that they're trying to manipulate people into believing that Bitcoin is something else. Nothing else is like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason that Bitcoin's the leader in the clubhouse and the number one over all time. And it's the driver of all markets. Like everybody's got a Bitcoin pair, but it doesn't mean that, it's get it on some markets you couldn't get from one coin to another without going through Bitcoin.
And now in Canada, it's going to be even harder because you can't even use USDT in Canada. So it was delisted on crypto.com because they're just saying we're not going to play this game.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, the crypto market and other markets. So, but let's see what our next story is here. Oh, I think it's time to talk about a little prepping advice, Patrick.
So you guys know I like to bring up at least one thing that you could do in your community to go look up and look at how to better prepare for yourself. So right now I want to talk about the local egg shortages, right? Everyone around the country is hearing about local egg shortages. We talked about it before. This is a website, and I'll have Jeff make sure that the link is on there. But this website with the grocery co-op allows you to look at where you may have a local co-op in your area. So for example, my local co-op, every beef that they have there is organic, grass-fed, pasture-raised kind of cows. They make sure that everything is sustainable from a local organic farm around here. So if you want a place to get fruits, to get vegetables, to get local meats or eggs, a lot of great food in those co-ops, and you can even have memberships. So in our area, we're totally going to make sure that we go out and look at the one in Corvallis and support the one in Albany and make sure that our Albany area co-op is going to thrive. Get out there and look at the co-ops in your area. There's a lot of things that they do, not just in terms of being able to have access to food, but if you're a member, you have more right to refuse the food first. So they have member days. You get days once a month where you have like a discount of like 10% off. So one of the easiest ways to think about how to prepare for our future is to go to those co-ops and then find out where your local farmers are, because those local co-ops it's a co-op. It's a bunch of farmers who get together and bring their product to sell at the market, just the way like it used to be back in the days when you used to watch Aladdin and you'd go to a market and you pick up a piece of bread and you buy that. It's the same thing. You get to do that now, but now everyone came to the same place. So you get to go back and find out what markets, what products you like, what farms you enjoy, and go visit their farms, support their farms, and figure out how to set up relationships with them. So that's one easy way to get healthy food that most people don't really look at. And we know for sure that you're supporting your local community. So again, get out there, look on the map. If you have a local co-op near you, take a look at one of those. And if you don't, maybe think about starting one.
Yeah, I was just looking for Colorado for Dylan. I saw one in Durango. I think that's
Isn't it too cold in Colorado to grow anything? They probably just have ice.
Hey, we get
Like-
over 300 days of sunshine a year. So, and
Do you really?
know, yeah, we get over
I've
300
seen
days
all
of
your
sunshine.
snowboarding videos. I just think of you and I think of cold, like immediately.
It's not even that cold. It's been relatively warm. Like typically there's ice all in my driveway because it's in the shade, so it doesn't get sun until like March.
Dude, ice doesn't mean relatively warm. There's nothing
not
about
ice.
ice
There's no
relatively
ice.
warm.
It's been like 30 to 40 degrees in like the coldest time of year typically. Typically everything's all frozen
relatively,
over.
I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
easy. One thing for me, I can always tell our viewers, go and look in your area. I really want you guys to be encouraged to get out there and meet your local community, meet the people who think like you, who value what you value. Get out there in your community and start meeting these people and be part of your community. Don't isolate yourself, because a community that isolates itself dies.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go back more and more to local. Like we've talked about that. I think we talked about it at our Dallas event. Like you're gonna go back to like the 1850s and Little House on the Prairie and the local ledger. It's really, really important to know your local stuff. If anything, it's a plan B, because there was a time, I mean, we've all gotten really comfortable with the supermarkets and the Trader Joe's and all the different markets that are available, that we don't have to go out to the farms and pick your own. And you kind of do that as fun. I mean, there was a time when that was mandatory, not just like, just a fun Saturday afternoon with the kids. So it's a big deal, and it does really help to be out there and know where your farmers markets are and know where these types of things are, just to have alternative sources, because you never know when you need them.
For sure.
All right.
And to build your portfolio of resources, of real resources. Most people have a portfolio of real resources, of the ability to Google map their nearest grocery store, but that's it. And when things don't show up at the grocery store, what do? And I know this is something that you can always work on and build on. It's something that I think as economic preppers, it's something to think about, is how are you building your portfolio of real resources?
Yeah, and speaking of building our portfolio on economic preppers, we'll be talking about relative temperatures and where we're going to be in the next month or so. There is an event that's going to come up in Wisconsin on February 11th, and it's not far from Madison, Green Bay. It's about an hour and a half northwest of Chicago, so it's in the Madison area. And I don't ask me to pronounce the town. I could spell it once, but I don't ask me to do it again. It's an Indian name, I believe, but it's going to be February 11th, Saturday, February 11th. Tickets are available. We're going to be doing there. Like, Patrick and I will be there. We'll be talking about some of the things that we talked about the first time around in Dallas in October, but there's been so much on CBDCs and ISO 2022 and a whole bunch more to talk about. So there's going to be a lot of new content, and Dylan will be zooming in as well, because he can't fly out due to a prior commitment. But it's going to be a really good event. A lot of people there. The tickets are very affordable. I think they're under like 150, $200, somewhere in that range. And it's a good one-day event to come out and meet people that are like-minded, network, get some ideas, get some thoughts, and it's a really good time. So if you're in the immediate area, if you're like Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, all Michigan, you could probably get out there on a Saturday and come on out and see us there. So, but before we wrap up the show, I think that it's probably time to talk about something that Patrick and I did. We watched, what was the show? It was Jack Ryan. We watched that over the break.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we watched Jack Ryan, and there's a lot of stories going on there. And I'm going to take the earpiece out so I can have
Jeff
the feedback.
Wouldn't shut up. He kept on saying things like, "Oh, this is this and this." And I'm like, I have to pause the show between him and the wife and the baby all there. I took us like a freaking 6 days to watch. And that's not true. I guess we got through it pretty quick. But yeah, it was fun.
It was fun.
Eye-opening with Jeff there.
And I think we watched part of season 2 as well, which was kind of reflective of that. And it's interesting because we didn't talk too much about what's going on in Brazil and how that government is basically, there's lots of government uproar, and I wouldn't say the government uproar, but there's a lot of governments that are being threatened by the populace, that they're not happy with what's going on. And that's happening a lot in Brazil right now. And these kinds of things that have been set up through Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I'll share the wiki page for this document. But I read this book, heard about it from a number of different sources the last couple of years. It's written by, I think his name was John Perkins, first published in 2004. This was a semi-autographical book, and it's about a guy who I don't need to share the screen now, but it's a guy who allegedly worked for this firm. He was recruited at college, kind of like the movie The Firm, but this was he was a numbers guy, and he helped do some analysis for NSA and some other three-letter agencies of the United States. And what they would do in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, they would go over to these foreign nations and tell them that, hey, you have an economy on the brink of just booming. All you need to do is build out infrastructure. We will give you these loans if you do that. And here's the proof that you will boom, because here's our numbers guy showing you all the numbers. Like if you put $50 billion of infrastructure in here, build an airport, build roads, whatever, the people will come and your economy will explode. Well, what really happened was that now this country signed, like they agreed to pay back all this money back to the United States, all this currency, all these dollars back to the United States. So they become an extension of the US dollar debt slave phenomenon of the global financial system that's put in place since Bretton Woods and since 1971. So now they furthered the life of the dollar by getting all these other different countries owing more debt to the United States through the dollar system. So this was the book, and it was like the guy, his experience and how he did it for many years. And now it's led to a lot of different stories that's actually happening in real life, like in Brazil right now, or it's happened or in Latin America, or in these stories like Jack Ryan that we saw. So it's a great book. It's also available in audiobook. They should make a movie out of it, quite honestly.
Dude, they're literally making movies out of it. They just call it Venezuela instead.
Also, it's happening in California. Because what they would do, right? They would overestimate. They would significantly overestimate, and they had to overestimate the growth, so that the growth that the country would actually experience would never equal the amount that they got the loan for. And they'd always find and make excuses for any sort of development. So I just saw an article the other day, just to tap into this, is that it was another article about California requiring all vehicles to be electric by like 2035 or something like that. That's an example. And I'm not saying it's like exactly the same, but it's an example of something very similar where you need to overhaul the existing infrastructure. It takes billions of dollars in investment. It's got to come from somewhere to get something done. And so someone's going to end up owing someone else money to do that. And if you read the book, you'll understand why that's important.
Yeah, I think it might have been the UK, but there was a recent, I know I saw I got your story about EVs by 2030 or 2035. There's some country, I can't remember, it might be UK, that they're trying to push it by 2025, which seems mathematically impossible, but they're pushing more and more in that direction. And that's a whole different story. We can go off and there's lots of tangents we can grab from this conversation today. But Patrick, you want to help wind down the show? What are your thoughts of what we talked about today?
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I start to just look around again, guys, what I really want to, again, get back to is the purpose of our time here together is to make you aware of what's happening around globally, not just economically, not just politically, not just with our natural resources, but really to get an understanding for the impacts that all of these have when they come together. And right now, we're looking like we're headed towards a major shitstorm. So for you guys, I don't understand what else I can do to help. And if you guys have any comments or any questions or anything that you want us to dig into, let's dig into it together. But what I'm here to say is, please make sure to take time, speak to your loved ones, and figure out how you're going to be planning together as a community to respond if something like this were to happen. If, and when we're saying something like this, especially because we're going to be posting some of this YouTube content, I'm going to be a little bit opaque here, but I will say that when you start to look at, let's say, global incidences occurring around the world, we want to take note about what's happening and why it's happening, and stop paying too much attention. For me, I don't look at too much attention as to what's on Fox News out there as much as, babe, did you see that this is empty at the grocery store? Like, let's go look at the other grocery stores. Is it consistently running out? And these are the things we need to share together. So if you guys can remember anything, or you guys see anything out in the markets, post it in the comments. Let us know what you're seeing in your areas. Give us more feedback. Let us know what you'd like to see from us. But for me, it just looks like everything we've been talking about for the last year just getting harder and hotter and heavier.
Dylan, what are your thoughts?
Just real quick is don't don't buy into all the distractions. Focus on what's real and what's important. Make that your primary goal and your primary focus, because we're all tapping into these, these media devices that makes us so susceptible to any sort of programming or suggestion, and you don't even realize it. Even us, right? Even us, even people that are in this, and it's because we're all human, and people have figured out how to program and suggest things to people. And so I think that the key thing is always be afraid to step back and have the real thing are the things that you actually need, things you actually value, understand what those are, and just keep going back to those things. Keep going back to those things, especially as things get more noisy out there or wild and crazy out there. It's always good to have that list, and you just know that that's why you're doing what you're doing. That's what you're focused on, and don't let the things out there distract you from the things that you've come up with that you value.
I think that's a great words to work from both our guys here. But you need to when things get complex, things get crazy, simplify what's important, emphasize those things. And watching shows like this, we really appreciate you joining us and watching shows that helps you to educate and get yourself ready for what's to come. And so you're prepared and not scared. So we really thank you taking the time. Like and subscribe, share this channel out, get to help other people to be more informed. Come on out and see us in Wisconsin. But until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.